What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Tonight I'm going to be doing a video that I actually told you in my last video I planned on doing. And the last video that I did, if you didn't see it already, I will put a link to it in the description. You should check it out. That video was about my 5 favorite hostels that I stayed at on the southern half of the AT. This video is going to be my top 10. I was unable to narrow it down to any less than 10. But it'll be my top 10 favorite non-hostels that I stayed at on the AT in the South. So my definition of the South for the sake of this video is going to be from Springer Mountain in Georgia to Harper's Ferry in West Virginia. So keep that in mind. This isn't going to cover any of Maryland or, to whatever you call the South. But anyways, the order of this, the spots that I'm going to tell you about is not going to be the order that I enjoyed them from, say, least favorite to favorite, but I'm going to do them in the order that you come to them if you're heading northbound on the AT, because I was northbound on the southern half of the AT, with the exception of the top 2. I was able to narrow down my 2 favorite places. However, the other 8, I enjoyed them all so much that it was, I wasn't able to really put an order to them that would make any sense. So that's why I'm going to do them in order of how you would get to them from Springer Mountain heading up to Harper's Ferry. So anyways, grab yourself an adult beverage or beverage of choice. Let's drink some beer and talk about the trail. We got another fireside chat going on here. It's raining outside again. 2 weekends in a row of rain. It is what it is. Anyways, we're going to start with Blood Mountain Cabins. That's it. Mile 31.4. That's when you get to Neal Gap in Georgia, right when you're done descending Blood Mountain, which is a brutal descent for a new hiker. But you'll get it done. Don't worry about it. I'm really glad that we chose, though, to stay at Blood Mountain Cabins. When you get down to Neal Gap, you do have the option to stay at Blood Mountain Cabins, or there is a hostel at Neal Gap. It's at the Mountain Crossing Outfitters, I think is what it's called, which is a really cool little outfitter. When you get down there, even if you're not going to stay, you can buy a frozen pizza and they'll cook it for you. There's a limited resupply. Just expect to pay double. Say a package of tuna fish is going to cost you $2 rather than $1. And ramen noodles are, I think, 75 cents instead of 35 cents. I don't know. So, you can get it done on a small resupply. You don't have very many miles from Neal Gap to get from there to Hiawassee, Georgia. So if you just kind of want to supplement your food a little bit, that's a pretty good place to do it. Just to expect to spend a little more money, but that's just how it goes. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere, and the trail crosses. You're going to walk, right? That's the one place on the trail you walk sort of through the building. There's a stone archway that you walk through. So you walk right through the place. It's really convenient, and that's a good place too. They do carry a lot of gear. They'll do a shakedown on your pack and all that while you're there. Anyways, that doesn't have anything to do with Blood Mountain Cabins. But yeah, Neal Gap's a cool place. Mountain Crossing Outfitters is a great place. You can stay at their hostel there. But we stayed at Blood Mountain Cabins. If you get down to Neal Gap, just take a right. If you're heading northbound, take a right on the road that's there. And it's maybe not even a quarter of a mile down there on the left. And I found out when I went to check in, I didn't know it beforehand, but there is a trail that they've cut from Mountain Crossings Outfitters to Blood Mountain Cabins. So you don't even have to walk the road. You can actually just walk down that trail. So keep that in mind. But I knew from previous research that I had done that I really did want to check out Blood Mountain Cabins, and I'm really glad I did. The place was really nice. We were able to have 4 people in a cabin, which kept it really affordable, and very comfortable. There was 2 bedroom, or there was a bedroom on the ground floor, and then there was a loft up top. There was a couch, 4 guys in that place. It was no problem at all. It was very comfortable. We stayed there for 2 nights, so we did take a zero there. The couple that runs the place was extremely friendly. They do your laundry for you at no charge if you stay there. There's a place down in the general store. It does close at 5 o'clock, so it closes a little bit early. But they sell Hunt's Brothers pizzas, which are great. For $10 you get a great pizza. They sell wings. So it's all great hot food. Trust me, by the time you get down to Neal Gap, you're so fresh on the trail. You know, you feel like you've been deprived of everything worth having. And once you get to Neal Gap, go down to Blood Mountain Cabins. You won't regret it. The place is great. It's really affordable. It's on a first come, first served basis if you're going to get the hiker rate, which was extremely affordable when you split it up 4 ways and you consider that they do your laundry for you and all that kind of stuff. But anyways, you know, you get yourself some pizza, some wings. There's a resupply down there. It's similar to the Mountain Crossings resupply. I think the prices are a little more reasonable at Blood Mountain Cabins compared to Mountain Crossings. But yeah, they've got pretty much everything you need to get to Hiawassee, Georgia. So I'm really glad we stayed there. The cabins were really nice. Everybody was really friendly, and it was a really enjoyable place to stay. So we're going to move on to the next place that you're going to get to, and that is the NOC. I really enjoyed myself at the NOC despite having a pretty bad head cold by the time I had gotten there. So I mean, I did some filming, but like not a whole bunch because I had a hard time, like, you know, breathing. You know, I was just really congested, but I still managed to enjoy myself. The NOC is this really cool place. This is another place that the trail just walks you right through. In fact, the bridge that you go over to get from where you actually would check in if you're going to rent a place to the little cabins and the bunkhouses and all of that, that's part of the AT itself. So that was very convenient. You're walking through there anyway. There's a restaurant there that serves incredibly good food. Their burgers are delicious. They have really good pizza. They sell beer there. The bunkhouses are really reasonable. They've got it from everything from like a 2-man bunkhouse up to like an overflow bunkhouse that houses a whole bunch of people. But you can actually call and make reservations at the NOC, which was really handy. I had pretty good reception on my cell phone in the southern part of the trail. So I was able to call like a day or two ahead and get Stuck Norris and I a reservation to stay because we did take a 0 at the NOC. And that was a really cool place. I'm glad we did because there was amazing food. They had a really good selection of beer, which was a surprise to me. And it was very affordable to stay there. I enjoyed it. You could even, now it was pretty early in the year. It was still March when we got there. But, you know, it was early enough. And it was early in the year, so the water was pretty cold. But they offered whitewater rafting trips that were really affordable. And part of that's because it was still sort of their off season. It was pre-season for them. But if you're coming through hiking, like you're there, you know, if you're doing a traditional northbound starting in March or April, chances are you're going to be at the NOC before the big wave of all the kayakers and canoers and all that, you know, kind of stuff comes through. So that was just a really fun place, really enjoyable. You know, it was great. Great place to rest up before you have to climb I want to say it's a 6+ mile climb out of the NOC. That's like the first really long climb you do on the trail. But I didn't feel like it was that bad of a climb. Plus, you end up at Chioa Bald if you do the whole climb in one day, and that makes it all worth it. So when you climb out of the NOC, don't forget I would get your water at the shelter before Chioa Bald, and then hike the extra mile or 2 and go stay up there. That was one of the best campsites I had on the trail. But anyways, I really enjoyed the NOC. It was cool. My dad came to visit and all that. It was a great time. Can't say enough about it. So you should really check it out and take a 0 there if you can swing it. All right, so the next place, and the NOC was at mile marker northbound from Springer Mountain, mile 137. The next place I'm going to talk about is at mile 164.4 if you're heading northbound, and that's Fontana Village. Fontana Village was a lot of fun. It's the place that you're going to stay right before you get into the Smoky Mountains. I mean, you don't have to stay there, but a lot of people do. It's a good place to stop, you know, even if it's just for a night. It's very easy to get to because when you hike down to Fontana Village, you come to like a paved road and there's a parking lot. And Fontana Village, it's basically a resort, but they have a shuttle that goes around. So you're going to have no cell phone coverage when you get there, but just wait at that parking lot and probably within a half hour, I would say a half hour. So it didn't even take that long for Stuck Norris and I, but I'm guessing probably within a half hour there will be a van that comes around that'll take you to Fontana Village, which is not walkable. You definitely need to get a shuttle there. They'll take you there, and I think they charge like $1 or $2. So, It's totally worth doing. We did stay there, and it's just kind of a cool little resort in the middle of nowhere. And they have everything you could ever want while you're on the AT. Between towns, or you can kind of consider that almost like being in town. They had that much there. There's a small general store. There's even a post office there, but they have very limited hours at that post office. So that's something you need to look into if you're going to leave, or have a box sent there. But you can have a box sent to the lodge, which is like the hotel there, which I would recommend over the post office because the hours are much better, and I don't think they charged anything to have a box sent there, even if you weren't staying there. Don't quote me on that. But anyways, I did have a box sent there as well. And, they had it at the front desk. It was no problem. But we ended up staying there for like 2 or 3 days. And it was Stuck Norris. That's right. That's when Stuck Norris had pulled a quad muscle. So he was having to heal up. And, it was a cool place to spend a few days while he was letting that heal up. We ended up renting a golf cart to get around, and we were shuttling hikers all over the village because, of course, on your day off, the last thing you want to do is be walking on that hard concrete or asphalt. So it was really cool. We got to meet some really cool people, hang out, have a great time. There's 2 or 3 restaurants there in the resort, all of which were really good. There's a game room. We were playing ping pong like for half a day. It was just a really neat place. It's worth checking out. It's nothing that you probably want to just stop at. If you're not going to take a day off, there's not a whole bunch there. Unless you need to do some sort of a resupply. It's a little bit of an expensive resupply point. But I recommend actually just taking a day off and enjoying it, going to get some really good food. And that was another place they had a really good selection of beer. And even if you wanted to get a shuttle, if you just wanted to get some beer, if you want to get a shuttle, you can get dropped off at this place called the Pit Stop. It's kind of as you're coming into the village. And that was a great place. It had good beer. And then they also had a really, really limited menu, but you could get some hot food there. So if you really wanted to just get off the trail for half a day, I guess it would be worth it. But I do recommend staying there because I had such a good time. So the next spot I'm going to tell you about was at mile marker 418.4. And this is a spot that we never really planned to even stop at, and that's Black Bear Resort. Now, you have an option when you get to that mile marker if you're even going to stop, because you're not very far from town. I'm pretty sure that's where it's not Dismal Falls. There's another waterfall. It's I think it's Laurel Falls. That's just north of that road crossing. So you're not very far at all from town, but you can stop there if you choose to. But you have an option. You can either go to Black Bear Resort. So when you get to the road, you take a right. You go to Black Bear Resort. If you get to the road and you take a left, you can go to Kincora Hiking Hostel. And I kind of wish that I would have spent time at both, because I really enjoyed my time at Black Bear Resort. But I kind of wish that I would have went to Kincora. And the reason for that is because that's owned by Bob Peoples. And he's very active in the Appalachian Trail community. He's big on trail maintenance and all of that kind of stuff. Just kind of a legend in the AT community. He's been involved with it for a very long time. He does a lot to just ensure that the AT stays the AT. That would have been very cool to meet him. And he has a donation-based hostel there. But actually the reason we ended up going to Black Bear is because we were hiking with this girl Parakeet for a few days after we had left Mountain Harbor Hostel, which I talked about in my last video. She was hiking with us, and she had went a little bit farther than us the day before we got there. And, the following day, the day we ended up going into Black Bear Resort, she had told a southbounder to tell us, Stuck Norris and myself, when they saw us, it's pretty obvious, hey, when you see a couple of fat guys on the trail. So they knew it was us. But anyways, she said, hey, tell them I'm not feeling good, so I'm going to stop at Black Bear Resort. So, when we got down to the road, we said, hey, let's go check it out. Plus, we had heard that they had beer there. So that's a thing, too. So we went to Black Bear Resort. Man, this is good. Sorry about that. We took a right. We walked down to Black Bear Resort, and sure enough, we saw Parakeet there. And she had actually made a right. She didn't know that we were going to stay there. She just wanted to tell somebody that was heading south what she was doing so that we knew that she was fine. We wouldn't worry. But anyways, we decided to go there anyways. We wanted a break. It was supposed to rain that night. So we get down there. Sure enough, she's there. She had gotten a reservation in the hostel. Now, there is a hostel there, but I didn't put this on the hostel list because we didn't stay in the hostel. We actually rented a room there. It is more like a resort. There's a bunch of like really small cabins, in one section down by the office area, and they were all rented out. They were a little more affordable, but we stayed in a really nice cabin like up on the hill, and it was just super nice. They had like a refrigerator, a microwave. It was small, but it was perfect for 2 people. You could fit 4 people in there, though. There was 2 sets of bunk beds, but it was really nice. There's a nice little porch on the front of it that you could, sit out and have some beer, because they did, in fact, sell beer there, and it, in fact, was good beer that they sold there. There were some good options, so I was very happy about that, as you can imagine. But it was a super nice place. But anyways, kind of a long story short, once we had saw Parakeet there, we had gotten the cabin. We wanted that place anyways. And we invited her, hey, you can just come stay with us and we'll split it up 3 ways. And of course she's like, all right, cool. So she did that. And to the people at the front desk, they didn't care either way. It was all good. So she came and she stayed with us. And it's a little bit funny. I mean, it's not really funny because she wasn't feeling good. But there's 3 of us in this small little cabin together, for that night. And the next morning, she wanted to go into town to see a doctor. And they actually had a shuttle going into town to bring people into town that morning. So she hopped on that shuttle. And she actually had gotten back by the time Stuck Norris and I had taken our time getting out of there. And we found out that she had strep throat. So it was like, great. We were sleeping in close quarters with somebody with strep throat. But it turned out to be nothing. It's nothing that Stuck Norris or I ended up getting. But it was just kind of ironic that we're in this tiny little place, and, Parakeet unfortunately ended up with strep throat. She ended up getting over it or whatever. And we hung out with her for quite a while down the trail. But anyways, we've gotten through 4 of them so far, folks. That's not too bad, but I am just about out of beer. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh my beer, and I'll be right back. All right, I made it back. There I go, making noise again. I told y'all in my last video I was going to get coasters, and it didn't happen. I guess I'm going to have to fire my production assistant. That I don't have, never did. But anyway, I guess I'll just have to hold my beer. Actually, I need to grab my phone, because that's got my cheat sheet on it. I hope everybody so far is enjoying our little fireside chat here about non-hostel, awesome places to stay on the southern half of the AT. So far we've made it through 4 of them. The next one I want to talk about is at mile marker 756.3 from Springer Mountain. If you're heading northbound, that is Middle Creek Campground. That's when you get to Jennings Creek, which is a road crossing on the AT. I gotta say, this is probably the one place that I felt like I needed to stop more than any other place on the AT, at least that I can remember. And the reason for that is because it was just brutally hot in Virginia during the time that I was hiking to get there. I guess it was around approximately mile 756.3. Leading up to that, there was this heat wave that went on for about a week and a half. And it was honestly, like, no BS, the only time I thought about getting off of the trail. I just was not having a good time whatsoever. And it was just like thing after thing after thing continued to happen. On that stretch, I remember, like, of course, one, it's just hot as the dickens, so it's extremely hard to stay hydrated. It's very hard to sleep when it's that hot out, no matter what your setup is. And that's something I just didn't have the time to get used to. And I'm from Florida, so I can deal with heat. So, I mean, there was other people that were really struggling. But anyways, like, during that stretch leading up to there, we had the heat, and then there was a time where I got stung by a whole bunch of yellow jackets, because I'd like come around a corner on the trail and a bear had just dug up a yellow jacket hive that was underground. And by the time I had turned the corner, I had heard it before I saw it, and then I'm covered in yellow jackets, got stung, and I had at one point went to take some pictures at an overlook and messed around and left my phone there and had to hike back. Well, I say hike, but run back. I left my pack with Stuck Norris up the trail, run back and forth to get my phone, added a few miles to the day. It was just, it was just a rough stretch of trail. And then we get down to Jennings Creek, and it's still brutally hot. And we decide to call this campground. And I'm glad we did. And like I said, we had no plans at all to stop there. But I had read about it in the book, and I decided we're going there. They didn't even have beer, and we were getting off the trail. It was that important. So we called them when we got down there, and the cell phone coverage, even in the parking lot, is really spotty. I had to stand on a rock or something, I remember, to get coverage. But anyways, I got through to them, and they sent somebody down to pick us up, which I really recommend. Now, it's like a mile and a half off of the trail, so trust me, you don't want to walk there. And it's like a really narrow, windy road. Just call them. They'll pick you up. They're not going to charge you anything. You can even just get off the trail to go down there. They have a short order grill, and everything there was really good. So you could just get off the trail if you time it right and just go have a legendary lunch at the place, and they'll take you back to the trail. And it's just a family run campground. It's a car camping ground, and by car camping ground, I mean it's not even back your car up and pitch a tent. It's drag your fifth wheel or travel trailer. But yeah, everybody there that was, patronizing the place that weekend and we got there on a weekend, so we weren't able to rent. They do have a couple of little cabins that are climate controlled that would have been amazing during that time because it was so hot. But of course, it was a weekend during the summer. Those were rented out. So we were probably the only people in the whole park that were tenting because everybody else was enjoying their air conditioning in their, 30-foot travel trailer or whatever they were, sleeping in. But anyways, it was just a great place. It's family run. The family that owns and runs it was extremely friendly. The food, again, was just amazing. But we weren't able to rent a cabin or anything there that was climate controlled, but right next to the little general store that they have there where the short order grill and all that is, there's a game room. And they're totally cool with hikers hanging out in the game room, and that's where we ordered our food. We ate it there, and it's climate controlled. It was nice and cool, and they left it open because there is a door they can isolate it. They left that open longer than the general store. So we stayed, they didn't kick us out. They didn't even really kick us out, but we ended up leaving at midnight or something. But it was so nice to have a big TV. They had a huge DVD collection of all kinds of, old movies. It was a good time. Couches and things in there. And then arcade games. More than anything, we were just enjoying the air conditioning. And we ended up, walking back up to our tents and everything after, it was midnight to let it cool down a little bit. But, it was just really cool, really nice place, and we timed it just right. It gave us a little bit of a break from the heat, but we stayed one night, which was a very enjoyable experience. Ordered some food at the grill, packed that food out, of course, for the first night, and then they dropped us back off at the trailhead, which was super cool of them. And when we got to the trailhead, I guess I'll tell you the story. I'll try to be quick about it. As soon as we get to the trailhead, one of the ladies that's an owner there at the campground recognized another guy that was there at the trailhead as a local. And, we'd kind of talked for a second. And, I knew that this person was pretty much legitimate if she was kind of, signing off on them. And, so as soon as we get there, this guy, he's hey, my name is, I don't even remember his name, but whatever. Introduces himself to Stuck Norris 9. He's camping down there too, because there's some really good camping areas right there at Jennings Creek. But, as timing goes, we get out of her car, and he's like, hey, I'm going into town, we're going to go buy some beer and get something to grill up over the fire tonight. And it's yes, please, obviously. So Stuck Norris stayed down with all of our gear and everything, found us a good camp spot on Jennings Creek, because it was so hot that the next day when we left the campsite, we had even decided, look, we're not hiking today. It's too hot to be hiking. It was just not even safe to be hiking, because there was some distance between water sources, and it just wasn't a good idea. It was that hot. We needed to take at least that day off, so we decided we were just going to go down and hang out at the creek. So we had already decided to kind of zero down at the creek. So that's what we did. So the guy that we had met, he offered. He took me into town. I bought Stuck Norris and I some beer. Then we got like hot dogs and, some other stuff to cook. It just really did it up. Hung out, laid around in the hammocks. Yeah, it was hot, but, beer helped. So it was really enjoyable. And I can't say enough about the campground itself. They were just really friendly. They did they definitely don't need hikers' business. They stayed plenty busy with people that were just out for the weekend with the family, but they were very welcoming and they went the extra mile, picked us up at the trailhead. They had to take somebody off of another job to come do that. And it was really cool because, knowing that we'd really appreciate, if nothing else, the awesome food, good hot food. But anyways, I really liked that place. You should check it out. So, the next spot I'm going to tell you about, I really liked too. Mile marker 784.9. And that is Glasgow, Virginia. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to call that a non-hostel. The reason for this is Glasgow, Virginia is a very unique place. It's a very easy hitch in. If you're heading north, you're going to walk over the James River footbridge from one of the most awesome campsites that we had on the trail, a stealth campsite that Stuck Norris discovered. But anyways, you'll walk north over the James River footbridge. You'll come to a parking area. It's a very easy hitch in. Stuck Norris and I didn't have to worry about hitching in because my friend Laura came and picked us up and took us into Glasgow, which was super cool of her. We had a good time while she was in town. But once you get into Glasgow, there's not really any lodging options. There is a hostel there. Stanimals has a hostel, and I heard good things about it. So that if you want to stay in a hostel, that's something worth checking out. But what we did, the town of Glasgow, or the city, or I don't know what kind of municipality it is. But anyways, the people of Glasgow have built this really cool hiker area. And it's a big field. It's really flat. A big grassy field with level ground. You can pitch your tent. There's clotheslines. There's everything you need. And then there's actually like a pavilion. It's like a structure that they built, and it's almost like a hybrid between a shelter that you would see in the woods and a hostel, if that makes sense. It may not if you've not been on the AT for any period of time. But basically what it was this really nice enclosed area that had bunks built into it. So it's like three-sided, like a shelter would be. But there was bunk. I don't know, it's hard to explain. But they, took the time to build in the bunks. There's a great hiker box there, because people over the campfire, they had a fire pit, were able to, cook food and anything that they didn't, like even condiments or whatever that they didn't use, they were able to leave there. And a lot of people stop in Glasgow for good reason, because it's a really cool place to stop. But they had everything you could think of, and they didn't charge anything at all to stay there. So it was just super friendly, and the people, of the town, they just loved hikers. And this whole area that I'm telling you about, we ended up tenting there. I mean, it's like, I would say 200 yards from a really good Italian restaurant that's very reasonably priced. And they also, if you're not into Italian food or you're not feeling it that day, they also sell, they have like really good burgers and some other just normal American fare. But I really enjoyed myself there, and it wasn't just because of the people that were there, and that definitely helped. But it was just super cool of the people of Glasgow, Virginia, to offer that up. And, like I said, it's like 200 yards to get to the Italian restaurant. Well, just across the one street that runs through Glasgow, there is like a local grocery store, which had a really good selection of craft beer. I really appreciated that. And they had a pretty good resupply in there. And then like every town in rural America, it seems like there was a Dollar General there. And then there was also a laundromat. At the area they had for hikers. There was a solar shower, so you could get a hot shower. I mean, all of this, and it's just something the city does. And there's a church in town that during like the bubble, I want to say it's one day a week because the Italian restaurant closes. And I was talking to a local, and he said it was, the town decided because there was only one, there was one day a week. I want to say it was Sunday. Maybe it was Monday. I think the Italian restaurant was closed Monday. I don't know. Don't quote me on it. But anyways, it was like there was nowhere to get hot food in town. So the local church would bring pizzas down to the hiking area. I mean, it was just, talk about just awesome. Like, yeah, I gotta personally thank everybody in Glasgow for they make everybody feel so welcome. It's definitely not something that they have to do, but they just enjoy having hikers come through there. So it's really cool, real enjoyable experience. Man, I wish every trail town was like that because they're on the short list of trail towns. Glasgow, Virginia, at least in the South, the ones I know about, they are on the short list. Really, really, really enjoyed myself there, and they had everything you needed, and it didn't cost you anything but time. So check out Glasgow. Do not skip through Glasgow. Check it out. All right, the next place, not very far north of Glasgow, Virginia, mile 762.9. Well, this is a little bit of a different scenario, and that is every single one of the pay campgrounds in Shenandoah National Park. And they're reasonable because you can split, I don't know how many tents you can have on one, like what they say. It was always just stuck Norris and myself, so it's definitely kosher with two. But if you split that up between two people for a campsite in Shenandoah, you will not regret it. I'm here to tell you, and the reason for that is because of the people that you're going to meet. And if you've followed me in any way, shape, or form, excuse me, you already know that my absolute favorite thing about the AT was the people on the AT. They were amazing. They were awesome. They were a good time. Not just the people affiliated with the AT or the Trail Angels, but the people that surrounded it. I can't even tell you how many people that I ran into that a 10-minute conversation with me, that's the first time they had ever realized that the Appalachian Trail was a thing. Really? There's a 2,200 mile trail? And that was on the AT. Okay, yeah, I run into that all the time here in Florida, but you're on the AT, and there was still that many people that didn't even know it was a thing. And it was very cool. Of course, they're always intrigued to talk to you. How'd you take this much time out of your life to do it? And, they were all super friendly. I had absolutely zero bad experiences with people, strangers, whatever it was, just the general public during my thru hike. And that was absolutely amazing. I run into problems on a daily basis in normal life, but on my thru hike, I didn't. And, I'm just trying to speak towards the people that are not even affiliated with the AT, don't even necessarily know that the Appalachian Trail exists, are nothing but friendly to you when you go to places like the campgrounds in Shenandoah National Park. And, well, yeah, there's plenty of places to camp for free. And I think you have to camp maybe a half mile on either side. So that's no big deal whatsoever. But it's crazy that the people are so friendly at those campsites. So to me, it was totally worth going to every one of them. And I want to say there was three. There's three that I can remember distinctly. And I loved them all for very different reasons. But the one constant in this equation was, it was different reasons, but it was all because of people. Different reasons with people. There was one time, and I've told these stories before, but there was one time where, we had run into this group of friends. They were from the Washington, D.C. area, and they would come down to Shenandoah every year, get together. They rented this big space, and they actually allowed us to stay at their spot for free because it was a weekend that we got there, and everything was booked up, but the park took incredible care of us. and they actually went out of their way and asked this group. They knew they had extra space at their camp spot, or they actually had reserved a few that were all together in kind of a field. They went out of their way. They drove us down there, and they asked, hey, is it cool if a couple of thru hikers stay here? And they were just extremely nice and accommodating. And, Stuck Norris and I got to know them folks. And, they sent us out of there with all kinds of awesome food. We hung out with them all night. Great group of people. Then there was a time where we had met some like-minded people, but they were strangers. One guy that was bike packing on a bicycle, and another guy that was actually just touring the East Coast on a motorcycle that he had all decked out with, stuff to camp along the way. And we met them two fellas at the same night. They came to check Stuck Norris and I out because we were through hiking. It was just really cool experience to share that with them. Then there was another time we were just hanging out at one of the waysides. That's another beautiful thing about those campgrounds is they have like these waysides or little camp stores. Not even waysides. The campgrounds they have usually both. Well, yeah, it depends on where you go. But like this one I'm talking about, it was a camp store and which they sell good beer at a reasonable price, which I was surprised. Being a national park, it was very reasonable. The only time you don't want to buy beer in Shenandoah is if it's in a wayside to where basically you have to order it as you order food and they give it to you, then it's not reasonable. But if you buy it in the camp store, it's like the same price as buying it anywhere else. So that was great. But anyways, we're hanging out at that camp store. We're waiting on our laundry. We had just gotten a shower. They had coin-op showers. We're waiting on our laundry. And, as we're just sitting there having a couple of beers in a breezeway, I mean, people are coming up to us, asking us questions, just great people. We got to meet so many awesome people that I'm telling you, like, slow down in Shenandoah. It's not known for the views, but it's absolutely, to me, known for awesome experiences and meeting really cool people and everything like that. So just take your time through there, and I do recommend stopping at all of those pay campgrounds. Chances are you're going to get some trail magic, a lot of trail magic while you're there. And that's not at all the reason to go there, but people are just good through there. So keep that in mind. All right, so the next one I'm going to talk about, this is number 8. This is at mile 1011.2, and that's the Blackburn AT Center. This is actually right off the trail. You can take a right, there's a little sign, and you just go down the hill. And it's in the middle of nowhere, it seems like. And it's this big house. There's a cool story behind it that I read. It was like way back in the day. It was like a doctor's house, a prominent doctor. I'm talking like early 1900s. And like early enough that where the hostel, it's not like a hostel, but it's a bunk room. I think they have like 4 bunks in it. It's first come, first served. But that house was actually, it's up on the property away from the main house. It was actually the servants' quarters back when this doctor originally developed this property. But anyways, they have these awesome tent pads that you can set up your tent. It's donation-based, so you donate what you can. And there's this huge wraparound porch to this house that, as long as, there's not like an overflow of people and, it doesn't become a problem, people can sleep on the porch, especially during inclement weather. But the whole purpose of this place is owned by the Potomac Appalachian Trail Club. The whole purpose of this place is to help, they kind of use it as like a training facility to, help, a lot of people that are out there to learn how to do trail maintenance. And, sometimes you wonder why you need a training facility. Well, the Potomac Appalachian Trail Club is enormous. And I want to give them a huge shout out because every inch of the trail that I personally walked that they took care of was very, very nice. You can tell they knew what they were doing. They took pride in it, and they manage like a lot of trail, especially as you're approaching the Harper's Ferry area. And, I was reading about them at one of their shelters. All of their shelters through there are just amazing. But I was reading about it at one of their shelters, and they maintain hundreds of miles of trail in other areas too. So it's a very good organization. And they own this property, and they allow through hikers, for donation only, to use the property. It was super nice. There's a caretaker they keep there. She was gone when I showed up, and she had left a note out on the porch just saying, here's, some free Gatorade, some lemonade and ice and cold water. And just amazing hospitality. It was just really neat. And then they had like a nice fire pit area that we were at, Stuck Norris, myself. We had run into my absolute favorite hiker on the trail. He wasn't through hiking, but he's hiked the entire trail. He did it over 3 years. But my buddy Hickory, he was there with a friend. Just an amazing place. Just really cool that they allow people to come through. I mean that's the business they're in. But yeah, anyways, when the caretaker got back, she's like offering to go get us like a soft drink, and just a really cool place. And because it was a training facility for people doing trail maintenance, that was probably the best tent pad I set my tent up on. Talk about a nice size, perfectly level. Just, man, they did it up. It's really good. But anyways, I'm running low on beer again, man. I need to get one more beer, and then we're going to go over. That's 8. I'm pretty sure. Let's see here. That's 8. All right, let me get another beer, and let's get these last 2 knocked out. Welcome back, ladies. I like to pretend that nothing but good-looking ladies watch these videos, but I wasn't a marketing major or anything, but I know that it's nothing but a bunch of sloppy dudes like myself, most likely, that are watching these. So anyways, we should move on. Goodness, can I make some more noise? There I go again. Let's just make a bunch of racket with the glass. Goodness. Anyways, let's get into my top 2. And these are my absolute top 2. The other 8, like I told you in the beginning, they were in no particular order other than from south to north. I went, from, if you were heading northbound on the AT, that was the stops you were going to make. These 2 are just absolutely my favorite places that I stopped, non-hostel wise, on the AT. And number 2, coming in hot at number 2, man, I absolutely love this place, is Devil's Backbone Brewery. What a cool experience. Now, this is at mile marker, hold on here, 842.8, and that's when you get to Reed's Gap. Trail crosses right through there. The brewery's not that far off the trail, but do yourself a favor and do not try to walk there. A big part of that is because it is a very windy, narrow road. It's a pretty busy trailhead because a lot of people walk the AT one way or another. It's also a good parking spot. There's a lot of people doing some road bike riding there. You hang out there for a few minutes and you're going to find a ride. In fact, somebody had told me that if you call the brewery, if you time it right and they're open and they're not busy, they may come pick you up at the trailhead. But you don't necessarily need to rely on that. Stuck Norris and I were there for maybe 10 or 15 minutes when somebody that was walking on the trail with his dog came out of the woods and asked what we were up to. We told him what we're up to is we're trying to get down to the brewery, and he said hop in. It was that simple, so we went down there to the brewery. This place was awesome, and you folks, if you've watched my videos, you know how I feel about beer and breweries and all that kind of stuff. I've visited all kinds of breweries along the trail. But this is not just on the trail. This is the coolest brewery that I've ever visited, period. I've been to a lot of breweries. And just the experience that I had at this one just sets it completely apart from any other brewery that I've ever been to. It was just such an enjoyable time. Now, to let you know why I think it's so cool. Okay, first of all, it's this beautiful brewery that's out in the middle of nowhere in Virginia that's surrounded by all these beautiful mountains. And the one thing that I didn't like about it was that there was no showers there, but there were really nice bathrooms that we were able to clean ourselves up enough to be presentable. But if you're like really, if you've been out there sweating a lot, you know, or whatever, when you get to the brewery, there's tons of outdoor seating. There's outdoor bars there. Like even if you're there early in the day, you can go get a beer at the bar and go sit outside on their property. It's all good. You don't have to be bellied up to the bar with a bunch of people that are fresh from town if you've been hiking for a week or whatever it is. But anyways, the bar was amazing. Now, they brew the beer that they sell at that Devil's Backbone Brew Pub there. They have since been bought by Anheuser-Busch. Well, they were actually bought by Anheuser-Busch quite some time before I got there. But they, it's cool that Anheuser-Busch is allowing them to operate the way they do. So they are distributing beer in the state of Virginia, I know for now, which was an amazing thing because pretty much any gas station you go to in Virginia, you could get the 8-Point IPA, which is a very good IPA if you're into that, or the Vienna Lager, which is a great lager if you're into lagers. So, and I always liked the 8-Point. Stuck Norris liked the Vienna Lager. It worked out. We could get good beer anywhere in Virginia, it seemed like. But anyways, that kind of beer that you're going to buy at a gas station or a grocery store, that comes from their production brewery, and that's just a part of, they were bought by a big company. But the brew pub that you will go to when you get to Reed's Gap, they brew that beer there for the brew pub at the original brewery. And it's kind of a really cool story as to how they even got started. It was actually somebody was developing like this huge neighborhood back when the economy tanked. And he thought, you know, most people put, and I'm in the swimming pool business, so I appreciate this, like most people will put like the community swimming pool in and like do that all up, and then, you know, incentive to build houses. Well, this guy was wise enough to say, I'm going to put a cool ass brewery in here, and, you know, we'll have like shuttles that go around to the neighborhood. I mean, it's a stupid amount of property that initially was owned by them. It may still be, I don't know for sure, but yeah, that was the idea. And anyways, the economy tanked, things changed, people weren't building like they were. So this brewery was there, and it was successful enough to eventually get bought by Anheuser-Busch. And now they're sort of turning the brewery into like, there's construction going on. They've got a distillery that was almost finished when Stuck Norris and I were there. And I want to say they were going to distill whiskey and vodka, but I don't remember for sure. But anyways, that's neat that they're going to get into distilling. But, you know, they brew amazing beers. But they're going to kind of turn it into like almost a resort atmosphere and have like places to where you can hook up an RV and hang out. And, you know, they are going to build showers. Like I said, they had great bathrooms for us to use. But they are going to build showers and all that, that's going to be so cool for hikers coming through. And something that's just awesome about this place is they also allow you to tent there for free. Now, like I said, they own a ton of property. You know, probably not as much as they used to, but I don't know that for sure. Maybe they still own it all, but I know that they still own quite a bit of it. But beyond a tree line, and they've got like these greenhouses in an area when you pull in. I don't know, you'd have to see it. Beyond the tree line there, you know, the tree line is considered property, the Devil's Backbone Brew Pub property. Well, beyond the tree line is, well, they own the property, but it's not on, like, you know, I don't know. You know what I mean. It's not considered Devil's Backbone Brew Pub. So what I'm getting at is they will allow you to borrow a growler, which is a 64-ounce jar, basically, if you're not familiar. And you're able to get your beer much cheaper if you have a growler filled than if you buy it pint by pint. So in most states, mine included, like, you can't drink packaged beer on premises, you know, at a brewery or brew pub or whatever. I mean, they can pour you pints out of kegs, but if it's a can, a bottle, a growler, you cannot consume that on that property. As soon as you leave that property, you're okay to consume it. You know how laws go. It makes no sense, but it is what it is. It's the same deal there. So anyways, the tinning area is considered off property. So you can borrow a growler, get it filled up cheap compared to pint glasses. I mean, like, you basically, and a growler is 4 pints. You know, it's 64 ounces. So you get 16 times 4, 64. You get 4 pints, and it's like $12 or something like that. So, I mean, it's very reasonable compared to paying $5 or $6 per pint. But anyways, you can go out to that tinning area, which is awesome. They cut the grass. It's completely level, and it's like back behind tree line. And they've cut these cool areas out. They put porta-johns back there, so you have a place to use a bathroom without walking all the way up to the brew pub. You can go enjoy that. Like, just such a cool place. And like the second we walked in and we told the bartender, hey, we're hiking, what do we need to know? She just like gives us a rundown of everything we need to know. And like, soon as she starts telling us this, we know, hey, this place loves having hikers. And trust me, it's another place. They're busy enough. They don't need hikers. Like, they're not making their money on hikers. They're just very hiker friendly. So another thing that she mentioned to us, there's a restaurant right there on property. I think it's called The Summit. I don't remember for sure. $5. If you're a hiker, they have a $5 hiker breakfast, which basically is like a little bit of everything on the menu, and it's this big plate of awesome food. And they don't even question. You just tell them, hey, I want a hiker breakfast. They could probably tell if you're hiking or not when you come through there. And, they hook you up, no questions asked. They had really good coffee there, too, which I appreciated when I could get it on the trail. But, just all these little things. And the food there at the brew pub was really good. It was, for a through hike, a little bit pricey. But Stuck Norris and I actually, they did brisket one night. And they only do it one night a week. And they regularly run out of it. But it was definitely very, very good brisket. And, barbecue's a subjective thing, and I feel like I'm a little bit of a snob when it comes to it, but it was very, very good and worth every penny that they charged. But it was very cool. And then to top the whole thing off, they'll give you a ride back to the trail. So you go to the Summit restaurant, you have your $5 hiker breakfast in the morning, and you can stay as long as you want at Devil's Backbone. They don't care. They don't charge you anything to tent there. And yeah, most people that are there are buying beer and stuff, so it works out for them. And it works out for you, too, because you can get beer. But, you can stay as long as you want. When you're ready to leave at the summit, when you're having breakfast, you just tell them, hey, I want to get back to the trailhead. And they'll say, all right, at 10 o'clock, be behind, 10 a.m., be behind the building. We'll have a truck roll around. That's what I told them. That's precisely what happened. And they drove us back up to the trail. It was great. I mean, it was really, really cool. I mean, hands down, the coolest brewery I've ever been to in my life. I'll definitely be going back to that place. So do not pass that up. Definitely check it out. So that wraps up number 2. I'm going to get into number 1. My number 1 absolute favorite non-hostel stop on the AT. And unfortunately for you fine folks, this probably isn't going to work out for you the way it worked out for me. And that is Mike and Nora's house. And that was they picked us up in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. They live in Frederick, Maryland. And that's some family friends. They took care of Stuck Norris and I. Like, they didn't even know Stuck Norris. And to be honest, it had been 20 years since I had seen either Mike or Nora. They were good friends of the family when I lived up in Woodbridge, Virginia, many years ago, like 20 years ago. And Nora would babysit myself and my siblings. And, we got to know that family, and they have 2 daughters, got to know them as well. And anyways, like, life happens. We end up in Florida. They're in Frederick, Maryland. 20 years later, Nora invites Stuck Norris and I to stay there, even though she doesn't even know who Stuck Norris is from Adam. But she knew that I was hiking the trail, and she had been following along with what I was doing, and said, hey, when you get to Harpers Ferry, that's close to the house. Like, you give us a call, and we got you covered, which was cool. So I definitely, hit them up and took advantage of that. And Stuck Norris and I get into the ATC in Harpers Ferry, which is a really cool spot. We get in there. And, we planned to have them pick us up. And sure enough, they show up to pick us up. And it was just the most amazing time that we could have ever imagined. I mean, the second they picked us up, it was like, hey, what do you need? Do you need to go somewhere to get something to eat? Do you need to go get some resupply? What do you need? Like, they were just they just wanted to help us out, which was so cool. And they didn't have to do this. They took time out of their normal busy lives to do this. And I remember Mike, he, as we're getting in the truck, hands us a Gatorade, or into their vehicle anyways, hands us a Gatorade, was like, hey, here's a Gatorade, put your stuff back here, hey, where do you need to go? Like, I mean, just took care of us. We ended up staying with them for a few days, and it was perfect timing because everything in Harper's Ferry is very expensive, and the closest thing to Harper's Ferry that you're probably going to stay at is going to be Washington, D.C., and we were going to flip there. So we were traveling from Washington, D.C. up to Maine. So we kind of needed that transition and to like gather our thoughts and figure stuff out during this big change that we were making, and it could not have gone more flawlessly because they just took care of us. They took care of everything we needed. Like, I didn't do any filming or anything while I was there because it's, like Miss Janet's house. We talked about in my last video, like it's their house. I'm not going to do that. But it was just so cool. Like, dude, they took us around. Like, I think the first proper night we were there, they took us to a local brew pub that brewed their own beer. It was really cool. We went, checked out Frederick, Maryland, which was awesome. And then their daughter Amelia took Stuck Norris and I over to Gettysburg one day. We got to check out all the stuff in Gettysburg. And then she took us to different breweries and brew pubs and just all the stuff that was right up our alley. And we were able to get everything done that we needed to get done in order to travel up to Maine without feeling like we were just, we didn't know we didn't even really know how to flip from Harper's Ferry to Maine. And like, it was just such an awesome time. We ended up staying with them for 3 or 4 days, I want to say. And they ended up getting us to Washington, D.C. early in the morning so that we were able to, from Union Station, that's where we took a train up to Boston. And then from Boston up to, I guess it was, I don't even know, up in Maine. I forget. Yeah, it all runs together at a certain point. But it was just so awesome that they did that for us. Didn't have to. Folks hadn't even seen me in 20 years. But, I mean, I will say that even back when, Nora was babysitting myself and my siblings, she always treated us like we were family. And it's amazing to see that continued today. That was the best trail magic, without a doubt. No question, hands down, that I got on the entire AT. So, thank you, Mike and Nora. That was just so awesome, and the timing could not have been better. So, anyways, I guess at this point we will talk about what kind of beer I'm drinking. So, tonight is Creature Comforts. This is an IPA. It's the Tropicalia IPA by Creature Comforts. I was actually introduced to this beer right before I left for my thru hike. There was a cool little tavern down in Dahlonega, Georgia, where I stayed right before I started my thru hike, and which I had been to before because I had been to Dahlonega. I really like that town. It's tiny, but it's really cool. It's where the University of North Georgia is. Anyways, really cool. There's a cool tavern down there, and they actually had this beer. And it's a very hard beer to get your hands on. And Creature Comforts is the brewery. They're out of Athens, Georgia. As far as I know, they don't even distribute outside of Georgia. And I also, from what I know, it's hard to get it outside of Athens or just in that surrounding kind of Atlanta area. Athens isn't too far from Atlanta, Georgia. But it is, without the shadow of a doubt, it's one of my top 3 favorite beers that I've ever had. It's just absolutely delicious. If you can get your hands on it, try it out. I was actually surprised to be able to get my hands on this can. Now, I know my dad has 1 can of this for me at his house because it's just so hard. We don't get up there often to get it. But he's got a can for me. But my buddy Stevel Knievel, he had 3 of them. He left them here, and I'm not making this up. He just said, as long as you leave me a little, because he's like way more into brewing beer than I am, he's going to start like making his own, or like, I don't know, like generating his own yeast cultures, and he wanted to use this beer as one of the yeasts that he's using. Like, dude, I just save him a little bit off so that he can do his magic, and I'm not making that up. It's really a thing. So yeah, dude, he left 3 of them here. Of course I'm game. And it is absolutely delicious. try to get a hold of it. If you're an IPA fan, Tropicalia IPA by Creature Comforts. It's absolutely delicious. Like I said, it's in my top 3 beers that I've ever had. And my dad told me they have a pale ale too. I don't remember what it's called. That's really good as well. He said it's almost as good as the Tropicalia. So definitely check it out. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up. Thank you everybody for watching. I'm sorry it got long. As usual. I mean, if you're familiar with it, you know how it goes. They get long. But anyways, what I hope for you is that you get, even if you get 10% of the hospitality that I got on the AT, if you're able to experience 10% of the hospitality that I did, then you are going to have an amazing hike. So keep that in mind. Really enjoy yourself. And don't forget to just take your time and really enjoy it. So I'll see you in the next video.